And what I have found is, coming out of grad school where I studied the emotion of wonder and what it does and how to use magic to make people more charitable or make them more generous with their community, was that I could take these concepts that magicians had about how to achieve the impossible. Because we start up every morning thinking about, all right, we're going to have to do things that everybody else thinks are impossible today. And we don't stop and say, okay, we can't do it, it's impossible. We say, yes, let's go figure it out. And we do that.
Welcome to Smolder, the Professionals Applied AI podcast. I'm your host, James Wagenheim. Today's guest is Seth Raphael, founder of Hello Wonder, a transformational educational platform powered by AI. He's a former inventor at Google and a professional magician that inspires wonder in everyone he meets and in all the magical work that he has touched. Among many other inspirational achievements, Seth is known as the magician that fooled Penn and Teller, and I highly encourage you to watch the clip that I'll share in the show notes. It's truly inspiring to watch Seth work, and he delights the host and audience, and I really enjoyed this conversation. If you like this conversation, please hit the like button, subscribe, or find us on Patreon. And without further ado, here is Seth Raphael.
Seth Raphael, thank you for joining the Smolder podcast.
My pleasure. It's a joy to be here.
Awesome. Well, I am thrilled to have you on because your background is one of the most interesting backgrounds that I've ever encountered. And so I definitely want to get to some of that. But also I just wanted to share some or let you share some exciting news that you founded a company that just got acquired. You want to talk a little bit about that real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. I am so excited at the outcome that we ended up at. So I do have a very non-conventional background, bringing together lots of different disciplines and ideas. And on top of that, I've got 5 kids. And being an inventor at Google, I saw the challenge of just letting kids use YouTube Kids. It wasn't working well.
Right.
Parents are frustrated and kids were getting harmed. So I founded Hello Wonder, which our goal was to make the internet amazing for kids using AI to reshape the internet in real time according to the parents' wishes and helping the kids discover their interests. So we spent 2.5 years building an amazing product that let kids talk to our agent that learned about them. And then parents got to say, hey, I want my kid to not see cartoons or not see violence, or I want my kid to focus on STEM or anger management. And in real time, we'd reshape the internet for them. And we sold the company to an amazing brand called Noggin, who made Blue's Clues and Bill Nye the Science Guy. They are in it for the right reasons. They're there to help kids discover their passions in the real world and take them deeper. And with their brand and our content engine, we're really excited about reaching even more kids.
That's so exciting. Wow. I mean, there's so much to unpack there. And I was a huge fan of Bill Nye the Science Guy when I was a kid. So that was definitely an inspiration to me. And I feel like, Blue's Clues, while I was way too old to appreciate that, I've got a newborn on the way as well. So I'm excited to get her in front of some educational content when she's old enough. It's awesome that you are, with your 5 children, thinking about how to connect them with technology in a way that's safe and educational. It's something that's really interesting to me. I just talked to Lucas Ames, as you know, last episode with Global Online Academy. And it was really inspiring to hear how technology is being deployed to, create some new learning methods. So I guess go ahead.
Just to encapsulate Bill Nye the Science Guy and what I experienced as a parent, every parent has too much demanded of them. There are too many, parents are working 2-3 jobs. They're trying to raise their kids. They aren't getting support at school. And so parents have to turn to technology. It is happening. 2-year-olds are using iPads and iPhones. And so with Hello Wonder, what it looked like when I would just let my kids on a Saturday morning use the iPad is I would get out of bed, I'd come downstairs, and I would see my kids at the kitchen table with a bowl with saran wrap on top of it and pepper, and they're humming at it. And that was my kids using the iPad because Hello Wonder had helped them find science experiments. It had told them how to do them, and they're out in the morning, mixing food coloring and water and soap to experiment with surface tension or visualizing sound waves or drawing. My kid learned how to draw amazingly realistic things. And this is what happens when we leverage the power of all the incredible human content that has been created and help connect kids with it instead of turning them off through giving them the drivel that the algorithms want them to see.
Yeah. And I feel like it's also just made so much more challenging in a way with AI, but the technology there is so amazing in terms of what the potential is for learning. So what were some of the challenges when you were developing Hello Wonder that you faced in terms of, doing some of the goals that you mentioned in terms of making it safe and being able to guide the education?
So many challenges. I think the first one is just finding the right problem to work on. And, as a parent with 5 kids, I had a sense of what my challenges were and a variety of needs from my different kids. And you tried to start with a solution that accommodated everything. So it had to lock the entire iPad down. It had to provide YouTube. It had to provide games. It had to provide the web. It even had video calling. And every kid on our platform originally got their own phone number so that grandparents, aunts, and uncles could text. And then they would read the messages to the kids, and the kids could reply via text. So my kids were at the time 5, and they're having text conversations before they can read with their grandparents. And one of the challenges is really, as a startup, just focusing on what is the key piece that is delivering, and you listen to your customers and you pay attention, and then you double down. And what we found was really, really critical was for parents to hand their kids a device and know that they were safe, and know that the device was supporting the parents and the parents' desires for the kids' education. So we really put a lot of energy after that initial exploration phase into developing tools for parents to say what they want, and then to translate that into not something punitive for kids, but something that supports kids. So one of the examples that we give is, a parent could say, I don't want AI to talk about sexual education with my child or reproduction. And another parent might be totally fine with that. And it's a natural topic. Kids are curious about all sorts of things. And so if a kid says, how is a baby made? A default, chat GPT from OpenAI might say, I'm not allowed to talk about that. And that shuts down kids, and that makes them say, hey, I want a different tool. I want a tool that's going to talk to me and give me what I want. And what we have found is a really amazing way of redirecting and saying, hey, that's an amazing question. It's so fascinating where babies come. We could start by looking at how plants are germinated. Plants come from seeds. Let's watch a video about how plants are germinated. And then later on, we could say, hey, if you have more questions about this, ask your parent. So we're following the parent's guidance, but we're doing it in a constructive way where the kids don't feel shut down or blocked.
Yeah.
We're always redirecting, and as we learn more about what the kid likes, we find ways to intersect their questions with things that are interesting to them to help them continue exploring and learning in deep ways. And that's really challenging because we didn't start with a catalog of content. In real time, we're going out to the entire internet, pulling in content from everywhere, and then classifying it. And the classification has to do a bunch of different things. It has to say, hey, is this accurate information? Is it harmful for kids? Is it an advertisement? Is it contain sponsored content? And then does it align with the parents' values? And then lastly, does it align with the kids' academic needs or academic goals right now? And to do that fast enough to give kids content that they feel excited about is a technical challenge as well as an engineering and product design challenge.
You mentioned product design challenge, and I was reading your LinkedIn profile, and one of the things that features really heavily in, I think, everything that you do is a sense of wonder. And I would love for you to just talk a little bit about what that means to you and what wonder means to you, and especially in terms of how you try to bring it to life in Hello Wonder and user experience in general.
Yeah, wonder has been a through line for me of my whole career.
I think it's such an amazing notion.
Yeah, thank you. It has enchanted me since childhood, and I actually wrote an entire master's thesis at MIT on wonder, on why we have it, what it is. And, I won't go too deep into evolutionary psychological theory, but my premise and my experience has been that wonder is this positive experience that gives you a flood of dopamine when you experience something that breaks your expectations. So when you find something unexpected, it can give you really, really positive experiences. Of course, there are times when your expectations being violated are terrifying or hurtful or like overwhelming. But there are many times where you experience this moment of awe or wonder where you see something that goes beyond anything that you've experienced, whether it's an aurora borealis or being underneath a glacier in an ice cave or discovering that, pepper floats on water or can move when you put soap on it. It gives you this hit of dopamine. And, my theory is that we have evolved that hit of dopamine when we see something that breaks our expectation to encourage us to go out and find things that break our world model, which is an inherently optimistic point of view about humans, that we are wired to go out and learn more and to break our preconceived notions and to go out and become more well adjusted to the environment around us. And I have used that as a magician to go out and perform magic, where I take people's expectations and break them and give them that experience of delight. And in that case, I don't want them to then try to figure it out, right? That's not the goal of the magician. We want to give you that dopamine hit and then say, okay, we're done. We're going to move on. I want you to revel in that moment, take that experience, get addicted to finding new things in your life that can give you that experience. And then in the educational realm, we want to do the same thing, but then we want to encourage discovery. We want to say, hey, you think that you know how sound works. Well, let's do an experiment that shows that you don't know how. And once you've had that dopamine hit, we can help you then transfer that into learning and a deepening understanding of, what harmonics are or how melodies are composed.
That's amazing. And I just love that as a whole thesis for what you can bring to life with technology, because I think that's the difference between a really great product that serves people's needs and a product that really is just trying to get by and get your attention. And I think that especially when it comes to education, AI has such a amazing opportunity or capacity for us to instill wonder in our user experiences, but it also has the capacity to deliver just slop. And so I guess, what are some of the ways that you feel like wonder could come forward with the power of AI?
Yeah, I think it has to do with depth and intentionality. And my experience is that capitalism has created this evolutionary pressure for apps to take our attention and to become the most popular apps. And they have evolved through iterations to hack our dopamine system, whether it's TikTok or YouTube Shorts. What surfaces through the algorithms are these things that are just designed to stimulate a very similar sense of, oh, that's new, oh, that's funny. And it creates this addictive thing where you are continuing to look for more, and it can create a cynical or a jaded sense, or we become inured to the effects of wonder, and we just keep looking for more, and we don't go deeper. And I think these systems have evolved naturally, and what we need to do is design systems that counteract it intentionally, that are about creating deeper senses of wonder. I mean, Alan Kay said, technology is anything invented after you're born. That we expect everything that existed before us is just part of the world, and then the new things are the things that are wonderful or magical or technological. And I really have tried to fight that with my kids and in myself, right? You can become accustomed to the fact that we're talking across the world instantly. And it is mind-blowing. And the fact this tiny little screen is this liquid crystal LCD, and it is mind-blowing what we just take for granted. No, it is what? I'm wireless AirPods that are using electric magnetism to communicate across the world. Even something, I just get delighted by the fact that microphone that you're using right now, if we switch the wires and play sound through it, it can become a speaker.
Yeah.
Right? There are all of these things that we just become commonplace of our life. And so one of the practices that I've instilled in my kids are called wonder drills. And that is trying to become attuned to the wonder in the world around you. So whether it's an incredible sunset or you see a spider hanging invisibly, sort of floating in midair, any one of my kids knows if they call wonder drill, I will stop whatever I'm doing, whatever meeting I'm doing. I will run down and I will go enjoy and revel in their sense of wonder.
Wow.
And it reminds me to tap into my sense of wonder and encourages us all to not take it for granted. Parents have the saying, don't yuck my yum. It's just because you don't like a food, don't diss it. We have don't yuck my wonder. We want to celebrate each other's wonder, and just because you know how something works doesn't mean that it shouldn't be wonderful for somebody else. And in fact, it's the opposite. You need to remember how to tap into that feeling of awe, because it is still remarkable and really amazing.
Wow, I love that sentiment. Yeah, and it's so refreshing to hear that designers and innovators like yourself are focusing on bringing real experiences and real moments forward with use of technology, because I feel like, especially as some of these large language model providers start to look to turn what they've built into some revenue streams, you can see some of the paths leading to a degrading of quality of service and just capitalizing on some of the attention markets. So it is really refreshing to talk to someone that has a passion for education for bringing forward a sense of wonder. And I just wanted to ask you a little bit about your background, because you mentioned that you're a magician, and I would love to hear on how that started for you, and two, how that has blended with technology and eventually brightened your career as well.
Yeah, I magic is the medium in which my brain thinks. Everyone has their own lens of experience through which they see the world, whether you're a painter imagining how you might paint a scene. For me, it's magic, and it started very young, around 7 or 8. I inherited my grandfather's magic books and magic tricks that he'd created. And if I had had TikTok, I wouldn't have been diving into the magic books. I wouldn't have had the time and the space to read and reread and practice. And I grew up on a farm in West Virginia, didn't have a whole lot of connection to other magicians. So I would learn things by reading, and it's hard to transfer sleight of hand sometimes through just text. And so I would end up doing things differently than other magicians who I would later meet, because I sort of evolved my own sort of style off in the woods.
Very cool.
And that just, for me, even as a young kid, I had the sense that, hey, I see wonder in the world. When I do magic for adults, they get reminded of that wonder. And that was powerful as a kid, to feel like I was giving something to adults that they had lost. And that paired very quickly, when I did start an introduction to technology and saw that I could use technology to create magic effects. So very early on, even in junior high, I was writing programs that would read your mind and create that experience of wonder. And to me, it really is, magic is about achieving things that you want to do, or making it seem as if you can do things that seem impossible. And technology is that manifested. I have this sort of hierarchy of storytellers can sort of, tell you anything that you want, and then magicians can make it seem real, and then engineers can actually turn it into reality. And so it's the spectrum that we move up and down, and the closer to engineering you get, the more people you can affect at scale and actually give them that empowering experience, as opposed to just inspiration. Inspiration is amazing, and I love it, and need that also. And what I have found is, coming out of grad school, where I studied the emotion of wonder and what it does, and how to use magic to make people more charitable or make them more generous with their community, was that I could take these concepts that magicians had about how to achieve the impossible. Because we start up every morning thinking about, all right, we're going to have to do things that everybody else thinks are impossible today. And we don't stop and say, okay, we can't do it, it's impossible. We say, yes, let's go figure it out. And we do that through a very systematic set of rituals. And we list out assumptions and we try to break them. We have a list of techniques that we can use to bypass, or we understand the limits of the materials, or we play to discover unexpected properties of things in our existing life that we've taken for granted. And when we take those same skills into the workplace, into a technological place, and say, run a workshop with folks, which is what I did out of grad school. It's like, hey, we're going to teach you magic tricks to get your brain thinking differently. Then we're going to come back to your technological product and say, forget everything we know. What do we wish that our product could do? And forget how we're going to do that. Start with what we wish we could do. And now we're going to think like magicians and work our way backwards from this idea of what we want to do, come up with ways to make it seem as if we're doing it, even if we can't. If we can make it seem to our customers as if a file is instantly uploaded, even if it isn't, right?
Yeah.
We can give them that feeling, even if, actually we started uploading it early and it was, and tremendously powerful in transforming the ways people think about their products, think about the limits of what they can do. And fundamentally, it's an exercise in empathy, because you have to be thinking about what your audience wants, what your customer wants. What is it that they actually want, as opposed to what you can build? And when you come from both sides, you're able to do things that other people don't think of by default.
That's amazing. I have spent a lot of time, basically since I was a teenager as well, as a developer and in charge of bringing forward user experiences. And so I really appreciate the value of having empathy when building product. And so I also have such an engineering and analytical mind. I have to ask the question of, what type of engineer are you? Like, what is what is the thing that you like to build?
Yeah, I think I have at times considered myself a wonder junkie. I love that feeling of like, I don't know how this thing is happening. I don't know how this thing is working. And then I love working really hard to close the loop. And that has pushed me into exploring all sorts of engineering. I started out with software. I studied deep computer science in undergraduate. I went into psychology and affective computing, looking at computers and emotions in grad school. Then I got into hardware, and I was building hardware that would perform magic. And then at Google, I was leading a prototyping team on the Google Glass team, or on the augmented reality team, or AI for productivity and workspace. I, do consulting work. I just consulted on somebody, helping them take an AI agent and put it into a physical payphone. So I didn't know how to hack into a payphone, but I love that feeling of like, this is a mystery. I want to come at it with excitement and patience, and that every piece that gets unlocked feels really exciting to me. So I like to engineer experiences with emotions in mind, and so that's sort of the overarching theme. And so if that experience is like, I want somebody to feel like they're actually talking to the future, like they're in the Matrix with a landline.
Yeah.
How do we get there? What are the skills I'm going to need to go get that done?
Well, actually, that's a good segue. One of my questions that I wanted to ask you, and I was reading some of your blog, and you said in an article that you like to build 5 years in the future. And so I'm curious, what do you see 5 years in the future now?
Yeah, it's a super question. It has been my practice to build the first version. I built the first version of Google Photos, and it took about 5 years for
Wow,
it to hit
my
the mass
favorite app.
market and get out there. Oh, good, yeah. But I didn't build the current version, but I built the very first version before we were
That's so
acquired
great.
by Google. I think Hello Wonder was an attempt to say, hey, and it's something that I've been dreaming of for 20 years. I wrote a paper in undergraduate about how AI was going to transform education. I took a look at the state of educational technology and all the deficits, and it would tell you that you were wrong, but it couldn't understand why. Watching my kids struggle with math, and that they come up with an answer, and their answer is correct. They just didn't understand the problem, or they didn't understand how it was supposed to be phrased as an answer. And I, as a human, can see that and help them say, oh, yeah, you had excellent logical, you thought about everything, you just didn't understand this one part, instead of saying, you get 0 out of 100 on this particular problem. So thinking about that was thinking 20 years in the future. While I was working at Google, working 5 years in the future, and I'm going to go back to another analogy from Alan Kay, who was working at Xerox PARC and needed to build a time machine so that he could build the experiences of the future. And so they saw what a computer could do today. They had Moore's law predicting that, hey, things are going to get better. And so he said, well, if we just spend $30,000, we can build a computer that will be a desktop computer in 10 years or in 30 years.
Yeah, wow.
And so they did that. So they created this incredibly complicated device that allowed him to build software that would be ready in 10, 20 years when the hardware caught up to where they were today. And so I've done that same playbook at Google, where, ridiculous things to create the experience that we believe will be possible in the future. And did that out in augmented reality and sort of placing things all around you, even though the hardware wasn't ready yet, even though the software wasn't ready yet, just trying to pretend as if it were, to go out and explore and see what resonates, build 20 different things, try them all, what the 5 that resonate with me, get my friends at Google to try, or other people to try. And then, when one of them takes off, go out and see. That's where you need to invest to get the hardware and the software to where we want to be. Right now, I think what is really confusing about this moment is that the rate of acceleration is changing. And, this is the singularity. Michio Kaku has talked about it for forever, that, hey, things are going to accelerate, and the acceleration is going to accelerate. And it makes it really hard to predict, because we're kind of at an inflection point, but it's not as beautiful. Moore's law makes it seem as if it's like this perfect doubling every 18 months. And Michio Kaku would have us believe that it's this like perfectly logarithmic or exponential curve as we go up. And that's not how it works. But we have fits and starts, and the jumps are getting bigger. And if you zoom out, it is going to look exponential. Probably, unless there are some fundamental limits that we don't understand. But in the middle of it, it's really hard to know when the next steps are. And so I could see Hello Wonder was going to be something that was going to be cheap and accessible and, possible. When I started Hello Wonder, it was too expensive, right? It was going to cost $20 an hour for kids to use our product.
Right.
It wasn't great. The responses from GPT-3 were kind of meh. We didn't have prompting, but you could see where the trajectory is. We expect this to become a commodity that we can use. We expect the quality and the accuracy to get better. And then we had some backup plans, right? We did some work on verifying information to combat hallucinations, which you don't want with a kid. And so you identify the opportunities that are going to prevent you from reaching that future. You come up with mitigation strategies, and then you try to say, okay, we believe this is what we're betting on, because betting on progress of technology has been pretty sure bet over time. We're going to build to where the technology will be in a year. And sure enough, OpenAI kept dropping their prices Certainly, VC money helped subsidize some of
Of
that,
course.
but we took advantage of that to help us be the first to market with a product for kids in the App Store that was talking to them, giving them appropriate answers, and helping them find content. All to say, I don't know where we're going to be in 5 years. I can tell you some of the analogies that I've been thinking about recently, which is that, the Industrial Revolution created this mass production ability, and we went from people making their own clothing to mass-produced clothing that lost all of its personalization. And I think we are seeing the inverse now
Yeah.
with software, which is that we are creating the ability for software to be created on demand for a particular need. And I've been playing around with this. I've got some posts around, like, I'm doing contracting work. I needed to, track my hours, and none of the billable hour software out there was what I wanted. And they were going to charge me 10, 20 bucks a month. And I'd have to try them all to figure out which one matched my needs. And I just told AI what I wanted.
Right.
And then it gave it to me. And it was literally 30 seconds for me saying it, and then 2 minutes for it to generate the code, and it was deployed, and I could start billing immediately. And then I started sharing it with people, and people are like, well, hey, I want to be able to pause the timer, or hey, this isn't how we do it. And I just tell the AI, this is what I want it to do, and then I give them a link 30 seconds later, and it's built, it's implemented, and it's deployed. And right now I'm the bottleneck, right? I am somebody who understands engineering. I know how to prompt, I know how to communicate, I know what the tools are, what their strengths and weaknesses are. And ultimately, the people using the product should be able to say, hey, I want the product to work this way. And we are going to be in a spot where it forks the code for you, and it gives you your own database, and it has this own concept of what you need. And I think that allows us as humans to be more creative if we are encouraged to, and allows us to get further. And I think that is what I hope is the future. I think there are bleak futures. I don't think anything is given. I think there are futures where we just keep pushing this dopamine machine, and the slot machine, or the slop machine, and we just keep diving deeper. I think the opportunities are way more interesting to focus on.
Agreed.
I'm
Well,
going all over the place.
I feel like there's a hope, especially on my part, and maybe this is projection of my own personal aesthetic, but there's sort of an allergy to, just absolute slop. And I do think that people recognize, and have started to recognize with, like Instagram, that just dedicating hours to swiping through, whether it be AI generated content or just human generated slop, that's really not providing value. I do think that these things operate in a pendulum, even though the incentive structures might be optimizing for a certain behavior that was in the past. I do think this generation of technology is going to push us to create things that actually are engaging versus just chasing that dopamine rush. So I love what you said about the inverse of going away from, a really massive production line to give everybody the same type of shirt towards a more personalized experience. Obviously, that has tremendous implications for education, as well as your experience with software. And I'm just, one of the things that I've always sort of thought when thinking sort of 5 years in the future around user experiences is that what's to stop us from having user experiences generated on the fly? Basically, rather than having a phone that is full of apps that are very well defined, you just have a blank slate that you start out with, and your interactions actually drive the user experience. And so I'm wondering, that's sort of a macro example maybe of what you were talking about with generating the ability to track time. And I'm curious, where does this ability to just prompt sort of the whatever you want machine in terms of information sort of lead us?
I think it's the fundamental ways we compute, or think about computers, or even think about doing work,
Right,
are broken, right? They understand thought and thinking as valuable as a slow process that requires iteration and correctness. And everything that we do, whether it's writing an essay or reading a book or drawing a painting or driving to school, all of these things presuppose that we are brains, and we think one piece at a time, and we go and we solve a problem. And sometimes we take tangents, but we are fundamentally singular thoughts. I'm oversimplifying. There are obviously lots of different thought processes going on in our brain, and isn't sort of a monolithic, one single-threaded processor in our brain. But what I see as a fundamental change in the way computing works is that we can now spin up infinite processes on our behalf. And that means that, if we even go away from software development, but just like, I want to take a trip, I want to go have a good time next week, I would, make a list of places. All right. Speaking of parallel processes, I've got 5 little parallel processes running. So, our old model would be like, okay, we're going to design a piece of software that helps you, pick a location, and then we're going to help you pick an itinerary, and then we're going to help you find a place to stay, and then we're going to help you book plane tickets. But in this new world where we can have autonomous agents doing each part of this in parallel, in mass, we can actually not only present you with, 10 different destinations, we can present you with 10 different destinations, each with 10 different itineraries, in a way where I can quickly consume all that information and say, hey, this looks great, I want more museum, I want less hiking.
Yeah.
And then it goes out and then it gives you, 20 more options. And I have kind of referred to this as quantum UX, where like it allows you to explore tons of possibilities at once and then bring them back together. Currently, you can ask the LLMs to, would you regenerate or give me an alternative? I think Midjourney was one of the first people to give you sort of 4, they call it this latent space exploring. I think we need better UX that allows us to explore so many paths at once. And then we actually need better infrastructure, because I think we are going to get to the point where my AI agent will actually book all of those things probabilistically and reserve hotels and reserve flights and be able to do them all, and then say, okay, we are going to collapse the waveform down into this one, and we're going to get reimbursements for all these other things that we've booked. And that's a fundamental different type of monetary and technical transactional infrastructure that requires agents to be able to act on my behalf, and for my app to talk to Airbnb and to talk to Expedia and to talk to United and to book a museum ticket, all acting like, there is so much that will change in order to support this future, but you can see that it is starting to come.
Oh, there's just so many things that I could unpack in what you just said. Everything from I love the idea that you can basically create a complete ontology in a moment's notice and have an agent out there exploring a worldview that, you might really enjoy this vacation in France versus Italy, and everything that might entail. And then also just thinking, again, going back to the empathy thing, as a small business provider, how do you manage that onslaught of agents booking reservations when they have no intention to execute? And, I think all of those things are going to have to be sort of retooled for the new capability. Our rules for engagement are going to have obviously real implications. I think it's going to be really interesting to see like how people respond to being able to keep up with that. What would you say are some of the best ways that small business owners or people that are just getting started to accommodate for the massive shift? Like, what are some of the guiding principles?
It is so challenging because the future is so unevenly distributed. For the ma and pa shops on the street, it is intimidating to think about the changes that are going to be required. And I don't think that everybody who's got a shop on the street is going to be able to take advantage of this.
Of course.
But using AI to give you enough expertise to do things that you didn't think you could do before, people can become their own social media managers. They can create advertisements. They can create window signs. You don't need to hire a designer anymore. You can, and you should. And it's complicated because designers are now like, well, what is my role? And it's not as good as if I did it. And you're right. Like the AI slop right now is not as good. And it changes the value so that more people have access to something that's not as good, which is the slopification. But then it's also, it has effects on both sides.
You can differentiate yourself by not taking advantage of the easy win with signs, just like you could if you designed the sign yourself and didn't have any skills whatsoever, or a tool to give you skills. I think it's sort of a similar ability that you can still use these new opportunities to differentiate yourself.
And to expand your reach and expand what you're capable of doing. And I'll give you just a silly little example that is fundamentally made possible by AI. And this is something I haven't showed many people yet. This is a tiny little wooden tile.
Oh, cool.
And it comes in this little bag right here, and it's called Tarot Deck.
Cool.
And you tap it to your phone, and it gives you a tarot card and a tarot reading.
Oh, I love this.
And this is a product that I created on a whim with AI. I
That's
had
so
this
cool.
idea. I talked to AI. AI made a rendering of what the tile should look like. It told me what technology to write. It wrote the backend software. It designed the advertisements, and it created a shopping site where I could sell them. I, as one person with 5 kids and other things going on, was able to spin up an entire hardware business just through conversation. And obviously, I have spent a career
Yeah,
building and exploring
the
and learning
skills.
how to explore these things. And AI, with the right mindset, people can use AI as a tutor to not necessarily teach them, but to point them in the right direction to go find the expertise that they need. And I think the people who are able to understand that that they've been given wings are
Mhm.
really going to do way more than could ever have been possible.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I love the idea too of blending, you know, large language model generating capabilities with, that's all in sort of a very ethereal space into something, a physical product that you can actually hold and use, which is a really great way of like, how can we create experiences that bring wonder into the world versus into this virtual space? So I'm wondering, like, what are some of the ways that you can use the experiences that you explore with AI and bring those into the actual world?
It's an area that is ripe for exploration.
I think
I
especially in the category of magic, there's just so
mm,
much potential. Just like
yeah.
you've had with your tarot card, where and I remember when Pokemon Go first came out, where people were running around the streets and looking for, getting outside and interacting with technology. There was something
Yeah.
there that was really special. It didn't quite, resonate with me, but I saw there's a lot of opportunity to make our world interactive in a way that's completely novel. And I'm
Yeah.
curious if you've had any, I love the tarot card example. I'm curious if you had other sort of inspirations in that direction.
Yeah, I think there's a tension, and the tension is around human connection
Yeah.
versus this AI connection. And I think that is a big worry of mine, is as we're using TikTok and these other, dopamine machines, we are left feeling bad, right? When you stop, you feel isolated and lonely and sad and regretful about the time that you spent on your devices. And my concern is that AI can talk to you and affirm you and validate you in a way that makes you not feel that downside at the end of it, that you might
Yeah.
feel as if you had had a parasocial relationship that actually was fulfilling, but
Mm.
isn't fundamentally, and ends up masking some of those effects. I think, an example that I've explored is like you going to a concert like Coachella, right? And there are all these stages and there are all these, there's music everywhere. And how do you find the music that you want? And AI embedded in the poster as an opportunity to talk to the poster and be like, hey, I want to get like an amazing reggae experience out of this concert. And it can tell you, hey, you're going to go here, you're going to go here, you're going to go here. And this is why, and here, listen to some music, tell me what you think about this, and allow you to, or there are some people who like that too. Why don't you guys pair up and go together? Finding opportunities to integrate into the real world, getting people out of their comfort zones. There are huge opportunities, but it really has to take intention. It has to take a thoughtfulness of, hey, what is my goal here? Is my goal to make $1 billion, or is my goal to help connect people to the music and the art in their local community? Is my goal to help kids get safely home from school if there are ice raids? Because AI can help in all of these cases. AI
Yeah.
can help you come up with creative strategies to reaching families in need. It can come up with creative strategies for marketing, and then it can write software that can help you discover things in your community in a way that has never been possible before.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, that's such a great thing to draw out, in that we really need to be mindful of creating real human connections as we're building the technology to generate experiences. I feel like that is profoundly one of our biggest challenges, and it's an outgrowth of everything that we built around social media. And I don't know if you saw the research that was just released around the number of people talking about suicide in OpenAI's platform with ChatGPT, but it's something
Mm.
on the order of 1.5 million of their users. And when you think about the number of users that they have, it lines up with the population and the rates of people that are thinking about suicide. So it sort of makes sense. But I do think that we're going to have to be really intentional with our user experiences so that we can reach those people and we're not moving more and more people into isolation, which, can have such strong negative side effects that we've seen and already played out.
Yeah. Early on, as we were raising money for Hello Wonder, someone was like, you could give every kid in the world access to like the best, math tutor in the world. And I was like, you know what I could also do? I could tell every kid in the world that they are a valuable human being who's worth being loved
Yeah.
and who's creative and has potential, right? And so those are just very different things about like what is the possibility for this technology. Very, very importantly, didn't want our AI to, say I love you or like you're amazing or say things like that. But, every human is inherently valuable and does have worth. And those are things that an AI agent can say without being disingenuous if, it's just embodying the values of our company. And that's where it becomes really, really worrisome because it is the values of these companies that become embedded either explicitly or implicitly into the products. And then you have all of the bias that came from the training data that reflects not only our best angels, but also our demons because it's all on the internet.
Yeah. One of the things that sort of came forward in the last discussion we had with Lucas Ames was just the importance of human interaction when it came to actually absorbing the material in a meaningful way, and how certain personalities work really well together for helping a kid learn. Obviously, personalities for educational material has been something that's been a part of, I think back to Mavis Beacon, for example, having a character or even just cartoon characters like Blue's Clues, those sorts of things.
Yep.
Having a character with personality is something that's an interesting way to engage. What are some of the ways that we can safely do that in introducing educational products? And what are some of the pitfalls that AI presents?
Yeah, I mean, that was something that we invested in. We hired a Pixar animator to create our character and give him a backstory and
Wow. Cool.
really help understand, this axolotl that suddenly became cognizant and conscious and able to communicate and discovering the world along with the child.
Oh, so
right?
cool.
It wasn't a tutor saying it knew everything. It was saying, hey, I don't know about your world. Let's explore it together. Teach me what you know. Putting the kid in the role of guide or co-explorer. All of that is very intentional. And then really every kid is different and kids have different preferences and different ages. And so ultimately our vision was that, you're going to graduate from this axolotl into a more mature character, just like Disney and Marvel. They've got these different properties for different ages as you grow. The same thing is required if you're going to, you can't design one character that grows with a kid from age 5 to age 25. They're different. They want to remember that. They want to be old friends. Oh, yeah, I remember Wonder. And that knowledge about you wants to transfer and grow and be like, hey, I want you to meet my new friend, whatever the next character is. I'm going to tell them all about you.
Yeah.
And then, did I miss anything? Have you grown? Do you not like Ninja Turtles anymore? Do you actually like math? Allowing kids to reflect on themselves and what their own skills are and what their own interests are and build in some of that introspective ability. And then also to turn from a role of censoring or supervising or chaperoning to more of a scaffolding role where we're pausing and saying, hey, this webpage doesn't look like it's appropriate for you. Do you want to turn around yourself? Or do you want to ask your parent for permission? So instead of sort of being, stopping it or being like, hey, giving kids an opportunity to build that moment of, is this actually appropriate for me? No. Or I'd be too embarrassed to ask my parents because I know it's not quite. Or actually, yeah, no, I am ready for this. I know better than the AI, and to allow that to be a more of a mutual relationship. And, one of the most amazing things is there's so much stuff on the internet. There's so much stuff that you can draw a Venn diagram of two relatively small things and you can find things in the middle. Yep. And then with generative AI, you can turn that intersection into a world to explore. And so one example that we built was Wonder knew that a kid was focusing on fractions. And the parents have said, this is what's important for my kid to work on right now. And the kid comes and says, I want to watch Mr. Beast videos. Our AI can go watch 100 Mr. Beast videos at once. It can design fraction curriculum around every video. It can say, hey, this one right here is going to make a great fraction lesson, and it's going to play the video 100 boys, 100 girls for the kid. And then it can pause the video and say, what fraction of the kids left are boys versus girls? And we can take something as esoteric as, learning fractions in a Mr. Beast video and turn it into something that the kid loves because they're interested in Mr. Beast.
Uh-huh.
It's meeting their academic needs. And then with our particular beliefs around pedagogy, we didn't feel it was appropriate to say, like, you can't watch the video until you answer this question correctly. It was enough to pause the video to ask the question, to get the kid thinking about, hey,
excuse me.
Fractions are real. They're in the real world. They're in this thing that I love. I love Mr. Beast videos. And so something that I, as a parent, would never want my kid to watch. I don't want my kid watching Mr. Beast videos. Suddenly, we found that way of meeting both needs at once. And that, to me, is pretty exciting.
That's pretty amazing. So I guess, that's just really awesome that you can actually do that and introduce it. But, it strikes me that not every parent has an educational platform like Hello Wonder. And what do you feel like are some of the principles or some of the theories you had that you have whenever exposing your own kids to technology that you maybe think other people could consider?
Do we have 2 more hours? Great. I mean, I think there's so many different ways to approach it. And first, to just give parents permission to make mistakes. The world is designed to make it hard for us. I believe there should be a class action suit against Apple and Google for their parental controls because they just don't work.
They don't work.
They're advertised, and there are bugs, and then there are design features that don't work. And my 14-year-old is like, hey, Dad, look, I figured out how to reset my phone and get around all of your limitations every time. And so, like, you can't win as a parent. And so just give yourself grace. Know that you're in a fight that is not going to be won through parental controls. It's going to be won through trust with your kids.
Yeah.
And building that relationship with your kid. Yep. And being patient with them because their dopamine brains, like, I know you parents, you are all scrolling on your phones too, and you don't want to be. And they have that without the knowledge of what they're missing out on or what the long-term health risks could be. So open communication, one of the things, parents were on our phones. And so telling your kid, hey, if I'm on my phone and I've said, hey, I don't want to use it at the dinner table, and you see me, tell your kid you're allowed to call me out and say, hey, Dad, will you put your phone away? And then listen and show that you are devoted to this relationship. And then when they have their phone out and you're like, hey, kiddo, can you put your phone away? They're going to have that mutual. It's not a one-way street. You're going to demonstrate that you're vulnerable and struggling. In a perfect world, we would all watch the content with our kids or pre-vet it or understand what they're watching. It's impossible. And so the best thing that you can do is work on learning these skills with your kids, finding tools like Hello Wonder. There are others out there that are safe places for super young kids. Khan Academy has a product, or PBS Kids has an app that you can lock an iPad onto that allows your kid to actually be watching safe stuff. But as they grow, the challenges just get harder and your kids get smarter, and they will outsmart us every time. And that's a good thing. And we just want to help them have eyes wide enough to know that there's more to the world than what they see on TikTok.
That's great. Now, it seems to me that this platform would work really well in schools. Is that something you all considered?
Yes, we did. We actually had a couple pilots in schools, had some amazing responses and feedback from teachers, some homeschooling programs, some alternative schooling programs. At the end of the day, we raised a couple $1 million, and we had to figure out how to scale. And there are so many trade-offs in every single little decision. And it's like parents need to give themselves grace. Like, as founders, you just have to be like, all right, we're going to try things. We're going to make mistakes. And we had to sort of decide, are we going to go through the educational system route? And the answer is you can do that. You can reach massive scale, but it is slow. Right. Yeah. Their buying cycles are, we're going to buy something for next year and we need to get it approved by the board, and it has to meet all the legislative requirements around various Title and various confidentiality things that made it not the path that we chose to go down, despite it seeming really, really promising. I know there are other players in this area that are doing awesome things. I think one of the best parts about building in the space that we chose to build in, which is incredibly hard, you're tackling a product area that has the user is the kid, the buyer is the parent or the school, and there's just these mixed requirements and advertising. Kids are using your product, loving it, but they're not telling other parents to install it. It's a really hard problem. but everybody who is in it because they love kids and they want the future to be better. So even our ostensible competitors, we all just want one of us to win,
Yeah.
because it is so much at stake, and the major winners in the field of kids and technology right now are hurting our kids, and they don't have incentive structures to fix it. So if you are a parent who is actively trying to make decisions for your kids' safety online, then I'd say you're doing a good job, and just keep at it.
That's amazing. I mean, I think that even if there's a lot of competitors in this space, there's probably so much demand that, especially for people that are building quality tools, that there is plenty of space to play for building quality experiences. And I think that I imagine that multiple solutions are going to be really valuable too, not just a single platform for education, but multiple educational platforms. I want to switch gears for a little bit just to make sure we have time. You started out a new venture, right? Tell me a little bit about Greedy Badger.
All right.
If you want to.
Yeah, no, I posted on LinkedIn about Greedy Badger, my new time tracking app, and it's tongue in cheek. I actually did create a time tracking app, and there are now multiple people using it. And what I've actually created is a metastructure that allows me to spin up ventures or products or experiences on demand for people. And so Greedy Badger was the first one that I built for myself as I needed it. And now there are other people using it. You will learn more if you're following me on LinkedIn about how my mom said, "Hey, Seth, will you help me make a lifeline so I can visualize my entire life on a timeline?" And 30 seconds later, she has an app where she is the product manager, and she's putting in her stories, and she's like, "I want it to look like this, and I want it to do like this, and I want to be able to share and add collaborators." And suddenly she has a product that she can now share with her sister and her friends from high school, and they're collaboratively building a timeline. Tiny Tarot, right? This is an entire company that is spun up, on the order of weeks, not the order of years, that is not capital intensive. So Greedy Badger is my first little tease of like, I didn't, create this, save the world child program, and now I'm going to go do a time tracking app. But what I do want to do is I want to empower people to create things that make their lives and other lives better, and to help spread, because the future is not evenly distributed. My intention is to help people realize what is possible. The mom and pop shops, aunts and uncles who feel disconnected from their nieces or nephews, or families in diaspora. I want to empower people to see the possibilities and then help execute them. And there is a rough patch where the tools aren't quite ready for the people who need them most. But again, seeing, maybe not 5 years out, maybe 1 to 2 years out, I want to help people be prepared for this future where they are empowered, because the opportunity to give people agency over their own lives is truly huge.
That's so exciting. What are some of the tools that you found really helpful in spinning up new ventures that other people might find useful?
So I think all of the tools are within rough parity right now in terms of general LLMs. Wherever you start might be where you stay for a little while. OpenAI, Gemini. I try to avoid ones with founders who I explicitly just can't stand. But I think really it is becoming in the habit of using these tools as generative, and as opposed to generative in the sort of opening sense of possibilities, instead of being like, "Hey, I want you to do this very specific thing. Help me think bigger about the kinds of things that I can do." So I think that's just really about how you use the tool. Are you using it to write an essay, or say, "Hey, what are all the essays I could write?" Or help me discover ideas. And that was something that we built into Hello Wonder, where all these other startups were like, "We're going to write creative stories for your kids," and we said, "No, our AI is going to ask the kid, who are the main characters? What is their struggle? Where are they? How are they growing? How do they get over it?" And it keeps asking questions, and at the end, you've got a story that the kid wrote. Right? It's taking their words and putting them back into an actual essay. Using the tools in that way is just taps into what we're good at, which is creativity and creative thinking. So that's in that arena. In terms of creating code, if you're a programmer, I like Cursor. There are a bunch of different styles of working, and there are different AI-powered agents that help people get things done differently. The tool that I am most excited about is a tool called Chef by a company called Convex.
Okay.
And Convex is a back-end as a service company there who powered Wonder. So all of our data, I like to tell non-technical people, at the end of the day, we've got an Excel spreadsheet that says which kid said what, which kid likes what, and what parents have which values. But they're not actually Excel spreadsheets. They're in a back end, and that back end was powered by Convex. And Convex built this tool called Chef. And Chef, you just say, hey, I want an app that, gives me a timeline, or I want an app to compare vacation ideas and make full plans for me. And it spits something out that is, it's running on their back end, it's fully hosted, you can give it design feedback, and you don't have to know how to program a single thing, and you can get a prototype that works
It's amazing.
in a matter of minutes. I think what they're doing is just absolutely, absolutely genius. And what that does is it takes what used to be a $40, $50, $60,000 boutique software firm. You would go say, hey, I've got this app idea, I want you to go, and they would do a couple iterations and give you a couple prototypes, and then 2-3 months later at $50,000, you've got something that you could then go take to an investor or go say, hey.
Yeah.
And now it's literally 5-10 minutes, and then you spend a couple hours refining it, add this feature, add that feature. Chef is one I really love. The images, each image generator has its own benefits. Nano Banana, I feel like, does pretty decently. For API, I've got other choices as I'm generating tarot card images on the demand. I can generate a taco tarot deck. I can generate a cat tarot deck. And each one of these things has a different personality. And again, just a mindset of exploration and openness and willingness to play and to be wrong is how you're going to find what works for you.
What do you say to everyone who is so excited about this technology, but ultimately feels overwhelmed by the directions that you could take, and eventually leads to sort of no movement whatsoever?
Start small. Can you rephrase your question? I don't know that
What do you?
I don't know.
Yeah, let me rephrase. What do you say to the folks that feel overwhelmed by the options with AI and where they should get started?
Pick one that you've heard of and just ask it what it can do and let it sort of show itself to you. It doesn't matter. ChatGPT is certainly the one that is the biggest market share right now. Just ask it what it can do and tell it about yourself. Say, hey, I'm a software engineer. I'm a librarian. I've got 2 kids. I've got no kids. I live in New York. I want to do this. I love eating out. How could AI be of assistance to me? And it will tell you. And if you add a little bit of yourself, you're going to end up with answers that nobody else will get. And that is the power of this technology, is that it can help you understand how it can fit into your life differently than it would for somebody else.
That's amazing. I've got one last question before we wrap up, and that's just sort of what are some of the insights that you would have liked to have known before you started a startup that you learned along the way?
It's right. And I knew it beforehand. Starting a startup is hard. And I knew that, and it was, it's like there's some law about time estimates take twice as long as you guess, even accounting for this rule. So there's no amount of saying, hey, it's going to be hard, that actually prepares you for the hardness of it. I think for this venture, raising venture capital was absolutely the right choice. I think I understand the complexity of raising money in a much deeper sense than I did when I started out. And I thought, this is the only path to greatness and success and impact. And I think now, as I'm moving forward, I am reconsidering, obviously, being able to do something without money is a privilege, and not everybody can do that. But there are ways to bootstrap and to do things that don't require venture levels of cash.
Right.
That I think just the question of should I raise money is a much more complex question than the venture capitalists want you to believe, because it is their best interest to get everybody to apply so that they can pick and get the things that they want. And venture capitalists, they want you to succeed. If they succeed, they've got other portfolio companies. If you fail, it's your entire company. And so the risk is just disproportionate there. And I have not enough good things to say about investors. Amazing investors. I lucked out. My co-founders, and our investment team, the most amazing people, most supportive throughout the entire process at every step of the way. So it's not that I had a bad experience. It's just the complexity of the dynamics between the incentives on both sides are much
Challenging
more interesting
to navigate
than I imagined.
Yeah.
Just different. They're just different.
I do think that we're in this really interesting phase where anybody can spin up a company and get going with an idea pretty quickly. But I think it does undersell, to your point, the difficulty in actually making it successful, which is way more hard than you probably imagine when you're getting started. But that doesn't mean don't get started. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Absolutely. Get started, and don't give up if it doesn't show traction. and then don't be afraid to throw it away if it's not showing traction. It is this dialectic of yes and. It is knowing that just because it's failing doesn't mean that you shouldn't try again. And that your success bar changes to where you want it to be. As we were looking to exit the company, we had a bunch of different criteria that would be a good partner exit for us. And they were all very different. It's like, one is like the most number of kids get it. One is like the most amount of money for investors. One is most number of jobs retained. Really, you get to define what success is for you, and only you get to do that.
That is an awesome sentiment to end on. Seth Raphael, thank you so much for your time, and really appreciate you joining the Smolder podcast.
My pleasure. And I love to talk and connect with people. So I'm Seth at magicseth.com if anybody wants to say hello.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Bye.
Well, Seth, thank you. I really appreciate it. It was such a pleasure.